So I wanted to start with Shaka Chamo. The reason I want to start with Shaka Chamo, first of all, actually, I should say that thank you for everybody who came, and both actually and virtually, in the honor of Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan. We're going to assume that even though some people here know about Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan, and I can sing out Professor Melech Shapiro who came, which is big success for me. Thank you for coming. Nevertheless, we're going to assume that we're introducing people to Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu. I want to start by introducing him from his youth. And in his youth, he wrote the famous song Shaka Chamo, which he wrote when he was 17 years old, which presents the quest of a young yeshiva bacher for meaning and purpose in life. And I asked my brother-in-law, Avi Schreiber, to sing it for us, so we're having a promise Sfira, and I'm going to play it for you. I'll translate before we start. Shaka Chamo, Shaka Nafshi, B'Samigona Rav Kayam. My soul, the sun is set, my soul is set in its great despair, which is vast like the sea. Because it's about to fall in its war as a basar Saddam with humanity. My ovarium, my calling, my days past, my days are finished. Without taking, without giving. If this is what you call life, and more tell me what is death. Please have mercy on me, because I do not know how I can live this way. I mishkar kol lismach, if to forget everything and rejoice, or lizkor hakol close, or to remember everything and cry. Acheni keli nolamachar, give me life, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, till tomorrow. Life doors chalom. Maybe I will resolve the dream. Shaka Chamo avim boim laila olam minatom. The sun has set, clouds are coming, the darkness is rising from the depths. So let's play this song now.
Shaka Chamo, Shaka Nafshi.
Can't hear it, please let me know.
Yegona Rav Kayam, Ki Omda Lipol Hi B'Milchamta, Es HaBasar V'es Hadam, Ki Omda Lipol Hi B'Milchamta, Es HaBasar V'es Hadam. Ya my ovarim, ya my kalim, mi beli kachas, mi beli tes, im lazos karas achayim, emor nakeli mazemes, im lazos karas achayim, emor nakeli mazemes. Chusakeli ki lo eda, eicha uchal kol lichyos, haim lishkoach kol usmoach, o lizkor hakol uvechos, haim lishkoach kol usmoach, o lizkor hakol uvechos. Achayeni keli na lemachar, ulai eftor es hachalom. Shaka Chamo avim baim, laila olam min hatom. Shaka Chamo avim baim, laila olam min hatom.
So Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu wrote that song when he was 17 years old. People in the yeshiva, there's like this roar around it, that there was some yeshiva buff. Didn't want to play that one yet. That's next. So there's this lore surrounding it that he actually wrote. So there's a yeshiva who was dying of cancer or something like that effect, who wrote this song as they were dying. He wrote it at 17 years old. I think he wrote it when he was still in Kelm, before he went to Slobodka. I think that actually he felt that way when he was in Kelm. And we know that yeshiva bachrim, especially in the Mussar movement, have a tendency to cheshbon hanefesh, which causes them very often to have a tendency to doubt themselves and to feel that their life has no meaning. The ironic thing is, of course, that Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu later on became famous for his tremendous cheerfulness and his tremendous exuberance and his tremendous simcha. And this song yet remained in the Muslim movement such a powerful statement, which became so meaningful to so many people because it expresses somebody who's looking, somebody who's questing for something meaningful in life. So therefore, the song became symbolic, even though it doesn't represent Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu, I think, at all. There's a song, a poem he wrote later on, which I think is more representative, which goes, and I didn't, no, it's on the screen, but it's called, he calls it Zimri, my song. It goes, Es nishmaschal amerchakim kla, take your soul, catapult it to the distances. Es amerchav l'shchakim kla, rip up the distance between you and the heavens. Or nishmashos mikochavim gizol, light from the sun, from the stars, you should steal. Mikvos havin tavol, and to tell yourself in the mikvos of the clouds. Es nishchaschol amerchakim shlach, send your soul to distances. To the highest heights you should go, and to the depths you should fly. As the distance to the heavens you should rip. As and the neshama, the distances you should catapult. In other words, the neshama is something which is extraordinarily powerful and has tremendous potential, and it's an exciting trip which we are going through life. And Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu writes a amazing line in one of his other poems, which I think is also relevant to this. And he says it in such a offhand way. He says, Baruch Shamar V'Yolam, blessed is HaKadosh Baruch who said and created the world, the small world and this wonderful world. For my skill called of army where everything starts in the middle of its growth, and it finishes in the middle. Everybody's life begins in the middle process and ends in the middle process. And put itself beyond all those who want to truly know. Now, in his confines of his time and place, so what exactly his role is from the beginning till the end in the eternity of the world. And praise the Kodesh Baruch who keeps his covenant in the small, wonderful world. Where the goodness of God much goes to the Satan. But to the few among people, Zurucham come, their spirit arises, Padam redeems them. Bum Omer Lo Gamar, and the heart says to them, this statement, Baruch Shamar. So obviously, Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu recognized later in life is short, life is difficult. But Baruch Shamar, what an amazing, wonderful world it is. And I think one of the reasons Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu was nifter at such an early age, 34, was specifically so that anytime we come to him, no matter how old we are, we ourselves feel this chachos nurim. We feel this special power of youthful positivity, exuberance, with the knowledge that life starts in the middle and ends in the middle. And that's an amazing thing, is that we're in the middle of it and we can never tell what exactly came before us, what's going to come after us, but we have each of us a role to play. And that's why I think Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu speaks to us at all times, all places, because as a result of that, he understood the idea shalom neda. Ultimately, we can't know everything. Quotes a French philosopher, Renan, who says most questions are resolved by not resolving. So it's somehow we come to resolutions because we intuit resolutions. But we try and understand we can, and we do what Kodesh Baruch Hu wants us to do in the world. And there is a quote which it's been one of the articles written about him. I'll show the screen again. My wife is supposed to be taking care of it, so I'm hoping that she does. Yeah. He says that in this Bible line here, he says, about Avraham Eliyahu, this from Hanem, it tells in 929. Avraham Eliyahu had this short tefillah, which he always said. I didn't see this before. Read live Avraham Eliyahu many times, but I just saw this yesterday. Tain li Hashem koach la'amin v'le'ahov. This is what he always stand for. I want to have koach, to love, to believe, and to love. Kamur, gam b'shas milchamta kol chosat satan. Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu had a very powerful spirit. They say named Alpha Sabbatka that Alpha Sabbatka said that one of the reasons he was taken so young is because he was fighting that powerful spirit which burned in many different places, and he got to the place where he transcended it, and he was taken up. But in any event, he said he was he was grabbing onto Kodesh Baruch Hu's throne, so to speak. These are the two things: to love and to believe and to love. If somebody has the capacity to love and to believe, then his soul has rest. Not that menucha which comes from coldness and from fossilization, but a complete menucha, chai, a loving one. Shall av and adava, shall emes emuna, of love and of giving, and of emes and emuna. Osa menucha shel nahara chav yadayim. This is a broad river of menucha, which flows with truth and with trust and with tranquility, from its source to the broad sea. Hashem heard his tefillah. Nasalo koach lamin ve'amin. Avraham Eliyahu Hashem. Tremendous to have the koach le'emunah. The samach b'simcha g'dola simcha shel mitzvah. Simcha shel akaras asfeikus. The simcha of resolving the issues which he had. Azkarah of cognition and pleasantness in life. He gave power to love. His heart was full of love and affection and friendship to everybody who came in touch with, and everybody he had to deal with. And every word which came out of his mouth, and which was written down for him in writing. Any statement he made, any pasuk he quoted, any precious pearl of wisdom was healing, and consoling to all those who are oppressed by life and its troubles. Hashem gave him power, which is, I think, the only thing, the most we can ask for. The highest we can ask for is the koach la'amil le'hov. And as I said, Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu, because he had this tremendous drive to clarify his emunah and his ava, the basic issues of makom were what involved him in all areas of life, but especially when it comes to Mussar. But before we come there, I want to play for you a clip which was made for us by Rabbi Lopiansky, especially for this occasion. Yes, there.
Shaka Chamo, Shaka Nafshi.
Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan was one of those giants that flew across the horizon and disappeared before we were zeicha to be nehene, to gain from this extraordinary person. Chazal Gemara in Hurrius mentions a shooting star that comes across once every 70 years, dazzling and completely baffles and fools the seagoers. It's a rare star that flashes across, and all we can say is we can stare in amazement and in wonder and just realize that there was a person like that. We were not zoche to have anything more than just a brief glimpse. Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu was born in 1890 in Lita. His father was an extraordinarily chashuv Talmid Chacham who died a few months before he was born. He was named after his father. And he himself went to learn in Kelm at an early age, at about 16 or so. He then went on to Slobodka and became the really Yeled Shashuim of the Alta Slobodka. The Alta Slobodka really took to him and loved him and shaped him and turned him into a Gavriel Rabba. He, in 1920, he became the head of the Berliner Seminary. He took the place of Reb David Tzvi Hafner, who passed away. And in 1924, he was nifta suddenly. Incredible. He was 34, 35, and was nifta. He was, like I said before, the chaviv of the Alta Slobodka. But we have things that he wrote. They were collected and put out as a sefer called Be'ikvis Hayira, and they are really incredible writings. And I'd like to highlight some points. The Gemara in the end of Saita speaks about when Yosef and Yeza and Yoshi Sreda were nifta. Batlu Eshkolos. Eshkolos is ish shekuloi ba, people that seem to encompass everything. Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu, from even the brief sketches that we have in this Be'ikvis Hayira, it's a few hundred pages, not very big, and it's just a compilation of all sorts of things that he printed and wrote and published over his lifetime. One is stunned, first of all, by an incredible range of things that he was oseg with. He wanted to write a new Pirush on Bavli. He felt Rashi's Lashon is a bit too short for many people. He started the project. One volume of it was printed, plus introduction on showing what Rashi is trying to do and what Rashi is trying to say, and so on. And in Be'ikvis Hayira, we have sketches of his in many areas. I just want to touch on a few of them. The Maimar Be'ikvis Hayira is one of his most famous Mussar Mamarim. Most of these Mamarim he published in Yeshua and other places. He was someone who published in different places Mamarim. And Be'ikvis Hayira is a Maimar about what Yiras Hashem is. It's an extraordinarily beautiful Maimar. And the point that it brings out is it's not the fear of harm per se, as much as the fear is much as somebody dancing with a prized child on his shoulders, and he is enthralled with that simcha of his child on his shoulders dancing, and yet he's so apprehensive that chas v'shalom he should drop it. So the real yira is something which is gilu bir'ada. It's the person is so overwhelmed with his keshet HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he doesn't want anything to disrupt it. He has a mimer over here explaining lumdis and trying to put it into terms of logic. He takes an example of a sugya, and he's trying to explain it to academians who are not familiar with Gemara, and showing how the parsing of different points produces these different dinim. He has over here so many different things. He talks about the difference between Hasidus and Mussar. He has a sort of interactions between the Marash and Rabbi Sol Salanta, and he delineates the points of each one of them. What is it that Mussar wanted? What is the Hasidus wanted? And so on. He has a whole bunch of letters speaking about what the yeshiva is. He has letters that he wrote to a friend of his coming back to yeshiva, what it means in yeshiva for Elul. His language is incredibly poetic, with a lot of depth and so on. He writes about a lot of inyanim that are omer ala perik in his days, different shitas, ideas, philosophies, etc. He has a story. He has a story called Yehude Litter, where he sketches the life of a Talmid Chacham who is married, as yet childless, and explains the sort of the feelings, the hopes, the aspiration of the wife. It's an extraordinarily human understanding of she'ifas of Bnei Torah in an environment that was challenging. This was something that was Litta struggled. Many people did not see any tachlis and tolis in the learning, and the young Dor, many moved on to other more recognized lucrative fields, Haskalah or other things, and he gives over the story of the hopes and dreams of a young Talmid Chacham who's a Malamed. Really an extraordinary story that so recognizes what feelings are, what hopes are, what dreams are. Really incredible. He has poems. One of his famous poems is Shaka Chamo, which has become quite a famous song. It's about a person feeling, what's the point of his life? Is his life accomplishing anything? And so on. Very eerie, thinking a minute about his own short life. There's a letter here to him from the Chofetz Chaim. Incredible. Chofetz Chaim wrote a letter to him in 1932, which is 2 years before he passed away. It's Parshas Hakamais Kedoshim, and he wrote L'kvoid Harav Hamoor Hagodol. Chofetz Chaim is writing Hamoor Hagodol, the great light. Edu Legom V'Sif Eres Yoram Erabim Hero. Harav Eliyahu B'noi Shorei Vahu V'Agoyim B'Toyer B'Tzadik Ma'asav Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu. He says Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu was Miyididei Nafshi, for my closest friends.
Levad was named after his father, who passed away before he was born.
And he writes, the Chofetz Chaim, there's a letter from Chofetz Chaim. I got your letter and I was happy twice. One, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu left your father a child who can take his place to bring people closer to Torah Vavoda, Nea Kodesh Baruch Hu b'mezaki v'arichas yamim, and to get to his madrega. Unfortunately, the bracha was not miskriim. V'oid olas libi b'roisi. I was so happy to see ki eretz Ashkenaz hischilul atzmiach shoshanim k'melefonim she'asan Torah. Germany has begun to sprout Torah as it was before. Yidna Hashem sheyala ma'ala ma'ala, and may it go higher and higher, and so on. And he's very meirich, explaining what it means, Neitzem Atoy, and so on. Goes into tremendous arichas Chavetz Chaim, and he says that he had asked the Chavetz Chaim that he would like to ask me some lemaistik shaylos and so on. He said, I can't. I'm very, very torrid with things that happen in my community. My eyes are very weak. Kadosh Baruch Hu has made me, has given me long life, but very, very weak. And I can't, he said, I haven't answered letters, but for you, I am answering. I worked very hard to answer because how much I am meirich you and your father. So there's a lot of Chavetz Chaim writing appreciation. The roshim that he made in these few years in Germany was really incredible. He was the first Litvish Talmud Chacham, the first Ben Yeshiva that had made his mark on had made his mark in Germany, and was able to give over what Lumdus is, what understanding a sugya is, things of that nature, and yet was not any less, and probably a lot more of intellectual. His incredible knowledge and the beauty of his presentation and writings are overwhelming. He was really a possible bridge between the worlds of Litta and Germany. That's what Chavetz Chaim writes. Let's maybe just finish with a poem that he wrote in Yiddish, and haunting to think about a young person writing a poem like this. This poem was written, I assume, in the 20s. That's because of just the way the other ones are dated, that same time, so I assume it's the same. Mich ruft mein Geist ahin zu. My spirit is calling me. Go there, come there, where my brothers are, and rest without peace, and are still happy, because people there know that happiness is to always be moving towards a goal, and they look a lot more to work hard than to sit back, even if it's very difficult. His point is, it's a long poem, I'm not going to read the rest of it, but he's basically looking, the life that's worth living is not a life that's easy, but a life that's always focused and always moving forward, always going to some beyond, some point. Many of his songs, many of his poems have that quality to it. It's hard for us to understand what a person like that could have brought to this world. It's hard to us imagine if somebody would have been able to rejuvenate in Germany with his personality, with his learning, everything. Why is it that such a bright light was flashed so teasingly for a short time and then disappeared. Those are part of those mysteries that we don't know. But just to, I would tell people to take the sefer in a quiet day and sit someplace quiet and go through Mamarim. They're incredible. Each and everything, there's so much depth to it. There's so much deep feeling, neshama, heart, from somebody who was a Bal Kaima, a Talmud Chacham, a Shir Kaima, and it's something that I think has the ability to awaken in us some of those nekudas that maybe times just kind of put to sleep. So the 100th Yahrzeit of his, it's a time maybe just to reflect a minute, to more than reflect about, to go through a mimer or two. It's today we tend to think of Yerushalayim just a very stark, from terms of denial of self and things like that. This is really a glimpse in a Gilu Barada, in a way of Yerushalayim being a person's so filled with dveikus and closeness to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he is so appreciative of that treasure, and therefore he is so careful every step that he takes that he not lose a drop of that treasure. May his memory bring bracha to us, and may his words inspire us.
I want to go through some of those things which Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu wrote, which we find that. But I first wanted actually to share with you a very interesting picture. This is a picture taken in Telz. And I think this time is just during the First World War. This person in the middle here, his name is Rabbi Eliezer Rabinovich. Rabinovich was the stepbrother of Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu's mother, after Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu's senior passed away, married a Rabbi Yaakov Rabinovich from Telz. Yaakov Rabinovich had, besides, after his Rebbetzin Fado Kaplan married Yaakov Rabinovich, he already had this son, Rabbi Eliezer Rabinovich, but he had also other children, including Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Rabinovich, a daughter married Rabbi Chaim Fun. Those are both very close friends of my grandfather. I have pictures from them in my grandfather's collection, and another daughter who was married to Rabbi Yaakov Lando of Bnei Brak. So this is Rabbi Eliezer Rabinovich, the stepbrother. This is over here. That is Rabbi Elia Meir Bloch, Rosh Hashiva of Telz. Now, this is later on in life, of course. He became the Rosh Hashiva of Telz in Cleveland. And this down here is Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu. And this is the head of the Telz Fire Department. I think we can probably make this a bit bigger. Maybe it'll be helpful. I was told that certain people in Telz, which will remain nameless, prefer that this picture not be published. So I don't know why not, but what? No, it's for real. They were volunteer firemen. They actually, in Telz, there was a huge fire in the late 1890s, and they were volunteer firemen. Now, this was what Gedolei Torah did once upon a time. They were volunteer firemen because they were concerned. They just in the Daled Amos, Rabbi Meir Bloch, Rabbi Eliezer Rabinovich, Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu, the fourth one. It's either an actual fire official or some other Jew from the city. It could be both. I don't know exactly, but it's an amazing picture. And it's not Purim. It's real. And okay, so I was we're not allowed to publish it, but I was given permission to show it tonight, and that's what I wanted to show it. So and again, it's symbolic of being involved, trying to deal with the world the way the world is, including fires. There should be chizuk for the people involved in the fire department. So I wanted to share some of Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu's thoughts. And he did not shy away from dealing with anything, really. And this is just to go through briefly some things which actually Rabbi Lapiansky mentioned. But starting, this is an article which I wrote many years ago. When he was 12 years old, he wrote the following paragraph. When spirit is exhausted, when memory revives the shadows of the past and the chill penetrates the heart, when reflection, like an autumn sun, illuminates the confusion of the present, but scatters its rays angrily upon one place, lacking the strength to rise up and advance. During such depressing moments of spiritual exhaustion, I am wont to picture before me in my imagination the exalted image of man, wandering the desert waste, alone on a globe that hurls through infinite expanses, alone, tortured unceasingly by the question that afflicts his soul. What purpose does he live? Alone, he strives with courage forward and upward, in the path of victory over the secrets of heaven and earth, forward and upward. I was able to write that at 12. Wow. And so then, as he went through life, he focused on many different things. Mussar, he was a big man, Mussar, Avraham Eliyahu, but he was not always happy with Mussar. He says, the sharpest sword upon our necks and not allowing us to stretch them out and proudly confront life, the heavy steel rings weighing down upon our fingers and preventing us from clenching them to form a powerful fist to raise up against arrogant Europe that does battle with us, are those great reflections concerning the vanity of this world which Mussar has bequeathed us, now teaching us when to make use of these reflections and when to turn to the other side. When we meet with the slightest disturbance in life, with one this-worldly obstacle, we immediately dismiss it as worthless, but at the same breath, we flee from it. Without reflecting, well, how should we respond to it? What claim does it make upon us? And should we concede somewhat to it, this claim, or not altogether? All of our service of God stems only from an before he wrote his famous statement, essay, an enfeebled form of fear, not the great fear of sin of Rabbi Chaim Luzzatto, only from a nervous anxiety, lest we stumble, heaven forbid, in acting properly. Possessed by blind anxiety, we grope about and stammer. Maybe. It's not so. Maybe it's not so good. Perhaps it's not so proper. With this attitude, we consider ourselves to be Yirei Shamayim. Woe to the shame of disgrace. Where is that vigorous help to the Torah intellect? It's on account of this that our power of practical intelligence has been enfeebled, and we have become fault finders who arouse loathing, and therefore we cannot discuss with anyone, presenting our thoughts clearly in a concise and direct form. You know, somebody was introduced to Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu just this week. He said to me, this speaks to Haredi and Chardal, and I said also that all society today. The power to present, to think cogently and present cogent thoughts, that's something which 100 years later we're still confronted with. It is on account of this that our power of practical intelligence has been feebled, that we have become fault finders who arouse loathing, and therefore cannot discuss with anyone, presenting our thoughts clearly and concise and direct form. We're capable of only mouthing the phrase, "You are far from the Torah, sunk in the mire of life. Therefore, you do not understand us." What does the Torah ever demand? Respond to those that have deeply strayed. Woe, nation of rabbits! How long shall you be rabbits? That's again the Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu was a tremendous talmid of the author. The author said to him, you are amazed that all those matters that stand at the heights of the world, all those ambitions, aspirations, desires, which endless rivers of blood have been spilled for generation upon generation in countless countries, and are for almost regarded as shadows of no substance. I understand you. I am amazed as you are, but amazement does not lead to blindness. Truth is truth, even if others disagree. And I, in my understanding, this is the author speaking, if not always my actions, do not see any desires anything more than fruitless hallucinations. Avraham Eliyahu writes, the last statement expressed such wonderful strength that it seemed to cut the air to shreds. This fascinating thing which Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu grappled with. The author was saying, you know what? Ultimately, what really matters is Mussar and Midos, our Yirei Shamayim. Doesn't necessarily matter how we confront the rest of the world. And Avraham Eliyahu, he was between Berlin and Slobodka. It's not just what tells in the middle. Also, it's not just he grappled with this his whole life. That dealing with the things, being a fireman, and that being one of the greatest Talmidei of the generation. I'm obviously going to skip around a bit here, but Avraham Eliyahu was always a tremendous lamdan. He said, when I first came here to Berlin, I would say to myself, the shir from Tels could not be said in Berlin. Now I say the shir from Berlin may be said in Tels. The voice of Lithuania may be heard in the tranquil halls of Germany. And he had a tremendous hashpah over his Talmidim to go to learn in Lithuanian. The story I just saw this week, Rabbi Meir Schlesinger says that Michael Michal Schlesinger, found called Torah, his uncle, left Berlin when Rabbi Avraham was nifter and went to everywhere went to some of Eastern Europe. And Swedish took over for Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu. And, so it could be that Swedish actually feels inspired by this, that Rabbi Michal said that there's nothing left for me in Berlin anymore. So many years later, Rabbi Schlesinger, Meir Schlesinger, the nephew, went to meet the Swedish. And he was very afraid the Swedish was going to say to him, "No, why did your uncle leave Berlin?" What the Swedish actually said to him was, "No, when your uncle went to Yahrzeit, why didn't he bring turning their Cheretz? Because Kol Torah is not turning their Cheretz." But in any event, Avraham Eliyahu was the first one to make that bridge, and the Swedish, of course, continued afterwards. The Rabbi Lopiansky mentioned the mimer about Hasidus and Mussar. It's a very powerful mimer. It's about, again, as he said, Marash of Lubavitch versus Rabbi Saul Salanter. And of course, Rabbi Saul Salanter was the role model for everything in Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu's life. Mussar does not disagree with Hasidus. Mussar is often satisfied with the Jewish strength of Hasidus, its capacity not to submit to the environment, its heartfelt openness that softens petty, superficial European etiquette. Etiquette was not the strong word of Hasidus back then either. Its readiness to dedicate itself to a lofty purpose and so easily sacrifice that purpose, normal conditions of life, its youthful fervor and mitzvahs, which extends well into old age. Mussar, however, also has a significant criticism of Hasidus. Uses, I think, the yeshivish phrase, "Pata bikoires." It sees Hasidus as too external, too theoretical and abstract. The Chassid deludes himself into thinking that he's getting more of Hasidus than he actually is. Then as Rav Dessler writes about it, also he says, that's why Hasidus worked. And Mussar failed. Because in Hasidus, you can fool yourself. So it's better, you can fake it till you make it. And if you don't make it, still you faked it. So the Mussar couldn't tolerate that. So the Hasidus deals with profound thoughts of great deeds that remains outside the essence of a Chassid. Hasidus penetrates the depths of the greatest Torah problems between man and God, between man and man, but it penetrates too little the self of a person, so that he might engage in reckoning as to where he stands in relation to his world, as relation to his obligation to his world. The average Chassid deludes himself into thinking that enigma that he sings wells up from his heart, and that the vacancy he experiences as a source in his soul, even though it is entirely possible these are transient moods, not associated with his true essence. But should not judge hastily. You cannot say to even the simplest chassid when he experiences dvekus that he does not truly cleave to God. But that constant self-critique, perhaps I'm deluding myself, the query that should accompany every step in life, have I not strayed in this instance from the past? And finally, all is encompassed in the thought that serves as a necessary precondition for Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. I have placed God before me always. Name is thought of, I have placed myself before me always. In other words, the thing, make a cheshma nefesh before I say, me and God, we're tight. What about me, my being real? All this is more prevalent in Mussar than in Hasidus. And then he goes to a very interesting discussion, which I'm not going to get to right now, about which has to do with Torah Cheretz, obviously, because Avraham Eliyahu had to deal with it coming into Germany, the relationship between Chachma to Umat and Chachma Yisrael, how to correlate the two of them. And as I said, not for now, but he says just Christianity maintains its science, philosophy, intellectual discipline, whereas fearing God is a matter of pure will, faith. One who wants to fear God fears him. The Torah vehemently disagrees. The rest of Hashem is an avodah, wisdom which must be pursued and acquired, beginning with Mussar, continuing halacha, and successfully ending with tshuva and ma'asim tovim. Then it's interesting, symbolic of this is that Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu says that his grandfather, who's the Rav in Kaidan, used to learn Chumash with Moses Mendelssohn's biur. And the biur, obviously, is a very controversial thing with Moses Mendelssohn's biur. But, he says, the Rav is asked from the special thoughts. The Rav replied that his father said that the prime problem with biur is it's mivos, it's forwards, which adopt a second attitude towards Nevi'im. Avraham Eliyahu's grandfather therefore rebounded his Tanakh with the biur after discarding the mavot, because the mavot are failing. The Zan perfectly defined to make use of Mendelssohn's excellent translation. And one of Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu's most controversial passages is about Herzl. He gave a speech at Herzl in 1919 in Pels, and in the Yahrzeit recently they had an article about Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu, and they said some of the things Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu wrote, they're problematic for our generation. So this is one of them. I'm not sure I keep losing the screen here. He says, he Herzl did not teach us Torah because he never was taught Torah. He taught us we had to say 2 words, 4 words in English, on occasion that until he came there to be or never been able to utter. I am a Jew, Bri, We are always able to recite those words in the base medrash next to our standards. We're even capable of reading and writing them. We could declare ourselves a nation in any place we wanted, except in that one place where the nations of the world would be found in the international political arena. There we were as wandering sheep, like one tells you, Yehuda Leib Gordon, who was not anywhere near Judaism, once put it, not a nation, not a congregation, no, rather a flock. Nor like sheep, not like sheep that are penned and fed, but like those that are shorn and slaughtered. When the European ruler asked the Jew, "Who are you?" would he respond simply, "I'm a Jew," without any qualifications or explanations? That's why I'm a Jew, but also German, also French, also English, etc. Along came Herzl, the first from among us to reach that international political arena that serves as a world court and respond openly, freely, effortlessly, and guilelessly. I am a Jew. Moreover, I have stolen from the land of which of the Jews, Eretz Yisrael, and here I've done nothing, but they placed me in a pit. So he knew that Herzl was not Shomer Mitzvah. He didn't look at Herzl as this great mystical Messiah, but he graduated.
Ariel.
What does Herzl represent? Is Herzl positive? Is he negative? That's something which is very important for him to figure out. I'm not going to go into this commentary on Talmud right now because it's obviously going to take very much time. We got to do it, but I want to point out one thing that a lot of his Mamorim and Halach are about Gezel Akum, Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach in general, Gary Teishav, and he had and something which is very powerful that he clearly saw that we have to figure out our relationship towards the non-Jews of the world. And he was, as you probably could figure out, he was much more attuned towards the positive relationship with the non-Jews than many sources which we find today. It's interesting that he says that, of course, things like you're not allowed to change your taxes because that's Gazo and things like that, which you don't necessarily always see in the early 20th century. But these are things which concerned him, which are things with which he was involved. And of course, the piece for which is most famous, the piece of Bika was Sayura. And Chatzkel Sarna said how incredible a piece it was, how it goes, the essence of Yira is captured there. And you have a translation, those here and others, about where of the piece by Rabbi Dr. Hill Goldberg. This was my translation, earlier translation, parts of it. And he says, one is not towards the actual path of illumination that are the prophets and the sages who withstands opposite ways of light at some distance, possesses little understanding of this term Yira. It would be better he not known this term, for now learn and was now learning for the first time. But this is a problem. He knows it, but he does not know properly. He possesses a dangerous translation of the entire concept and cannot avoid its negative ramifications. For example, when he mentions this person, he can only translate it thus: bent head, wrinkled brow, glazed eyes, hunchback, trembling left hand, right hand clapping al chait, knocking thighs, failing knees, and stumbling heels. But he does not know this translation is heretical. One who knows what Yira is and what it means, the source from which it flows, from whence it comes. And then he goes into in great detail. Again, I don't want to take the time now. I know something's happening with my screen here. But he goes into speaks about how Yira is supposed to give a person.
Lily, please stop making the screen black.
Starting again. Okay. He says, when he goes into Yira, he says that a Swedish wise man was once discussing sanctity, said that sanctity of an individual proves that he who possesses it has a direct relationship with the strongest source of existence. My opinion, the conception of Judaism, this is the definition of Yira. Sanctity, Kedusha is loftier still. We have a different idea of it, but this is not the place to define it. I'm supposed to speak again tomorrow, a different venue, maybe I'll speak about then. What is Yira? It is a broad jump over the vast gap between myself and my creator. It's meant to separate from smallness. Fly over, that's precious. Precious not from El Mazeh, but precious from Katniss. Fly over barriers, and from their quest, and for there you'll find it. Indeed, this is a direct relationship. This is the true vision. We call Yira. He goes on, talks about some length. It says, very, very moving, very, very powerful, and it's much more powerful even in Hebrew. And then he says, and now not pride, gaivas are downfall, but humility. Rabbi Avraham,
can you please stop shooting your mouth off?
Whoever's in the please talking, we can hear you, so please remain silent. Now, not gaivas are downfall, but humility, another. We become humble without strength. Our souls are like widows. Deprived of confidence and security without strength of mind. That Avraham Eliyahu says elsewhere, and this is classic Slabodka. He says, if you think another means to think you're worthless, you don't understand another is. Another, he says, means you have to know that you are like the Himalayan mountains in your height. And then know that's still nothing compared to what your purpose is in this world. You have to take all of that greatness which you possess and make it completely subservient to we have become humble without strength, and our souls like widows, deprived of confidence and security, without strength of mind. It's not humility for the sake of heaven, it's for the sake of inactivity that comes from despair, and for the sake of despair that comes from inactivity. We become paupers, happy with our lot and our limited spiritual property. The Lithuanian Jew is happy with the glory of his Islamness. Polish Jew with the majesty of his mysticism, enlightening people. The Hungarian Jew with the glory of his Islamness. The Polish Jew with the majesty of his mysticism, enlightening. The Jew with fervent and detailed grasp Talmud topics. The German Jew was meticulous in observance of secular acquisitions. The common denominator among us that we all suffice with what we have, placidly and quietly, each of us in our own portions, slumbering deeply. Nothing contains enough spirit of life to rouse, encourage, and uplift. God said to our first forefather, do not fear Avrohom. The time of Eliyahu says, one only says, do not fear. It's one who's truly fearful of heaven. And then he goes on to discuss how this should put us in a situation where we aspire with boldness and with courage to go out and to teach Am Yisrael, to teach the world about Ratzon Hashem in this world. And his brother-in-law's name was Rabbi Meltzer. They're married to sisters. Rabbi Meltzer is Rabbi Zalman's son. He wrote a poem about him, which is, I'm told, mimics a poem by Bialik. Bialik wrote a poem about how somebody died, and that's it. They're finished. Nothing left after they died. They're just dead. So this is, he critiques that poem with this poem about Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu. There was a man whose life was creation, a man whose creation was life. There was a man who sang and who learned and who taught, who thought and who rejoiced, and who loved and who grieved, and all of his words were alive and illuminated with the light of Avram Avinu's furnace. A brilliant light that escapes from between his words. They're like a hammer shatters rock. The lights of the secret of Yisrael, the lights of the secret of the world. And light became life, and the light of life, a life of light. And he is no longer. Is he no longer? Wasn't the brilliance of his eyes, smiling eyes, absorbed in the light of my eyes and the light of your eyes? You, my brother in sorrow, who knew him, will not happen that his image will flash out and illumine us. Will not happen that we will see him smiling at us, accompanying us in our determined pursuits and attempts to be alive. In our sense, in the joy of our creations, let us impart to all who come within our precincts from his eyes, from the light of his soul, and they will live by them, and he will live in them. One, if we conclude with two things. One is the as I mentioned before, my family is very close to Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu, and my great aunt and great uncle who lived in Yerushalayim were Telzers, and Yosef Holtzberg. They sang Shir Hamalos in their house. It's a niggun which was written by Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu. Rabbi Avraham did not write the niggun for Shaka Chamo. It's a famous niggun which somebody knows exactly where it comes from. But this niggun, he did write this niggun for Shir Hamalos. I wanted to play it for you. And again, this is my.
You write the music?
No, Shir Hamalos.
This one. They actually put it into notes.
He put into notes. He wrote the notes. Yes.
Music?
Yes. In the book, they have several pages of.
Yeah, but I know.
I'm not sure if he played violin or if Rabbi Meltzer played violin, but they had. Yeah, he wrote notes.
Shir hamalos b'shuv Adonai es shivas tzionayinu b'chol min az yimale tzachok pinu shonenu rina az yomeru bagoyim yigdil Adonai lasosimele yigdil Adonai lasosimanu hayinu semechim shuva Adonai es shivisenu kafikim banegev hazorim bedima berina yiktoru haloch yelech uvacho no se meshech hazara bo yavo verina no se alumosav.
And finally, I'd like to share with you a visit to the kever, which evidently was made today by a few people who are in Berlin. And it's a well-known Jewish history expert, Yehuda Geberer, who's
The Alter said his whole yeshiva in Slobodka was kedai to produce one of Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan. He's unknown because he died suddenly, very unexpectedly, and he was 34 years old. Put it in perspective, he was a year older than Rabbi Avraham Kaplan and Rabbi Kamenetsky. So that means he's their generation. So he could have been in our world had he lived longer.
This is a picture from my grandfather. That's
a long time ago.
in his album. That's where the picture comes from.
1923. He was 34, 1889, 1923, and he was the shining light of Slobodka, a unique neshama, He would say Graman by his friends Sheva Brachas, and it was all Aaron Cutler's Sheva
Aaron
Brachas.
Cutler's Sheva Brachas. Aaron gave a long pilpul, after which he turned it into a Graman, saying the entire thing back in Graman. And famously, a bunch of Talmidim Ner Yisrael were casting doubt, as Litvaks tend to do, about the veracity of this story. And they asked him, and also the Rebbetzin Ruderman, the daughter of Sheffield Kramer, says it's a true story, and she was there because she was at the wedding, and she heard this actually happen.
Rabbi Eliyahu Kaplan was in his 34 years on this world. He wrote Sfarim, he gave Shiurim, he wrote articles to all the Torah journals, he wrote poetry, he was hired as a Rav and a Rosh Yeshiva, and then he was made a Rosh Yeshiva here in the Rabbinical Seminary in Berlin. The Sri Age, Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, succeeded him. So he came to take over, another Slobodka import. He was this rising star in all fields. In the world of Kabbalah, he was already becoming someone well known in Kabbalah. In the world of Torah, in Psak, in Lumdis, he was already world renowned. In Mussar, in Hanhaga, in leadership, and surprisingly, I had read about it a few times, that he was becoming known in the Berlin circles as this brilliant mind who was a Slobodker like Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg and other Slobodkers too, who was willing to engage with the scholarly world and was willing to engage with the Jewish studies, and he, in a frum way, it wasn't a maskil or anything, right? But he was willing to engage with that world and that society. And so I had read about it once, and recently I was in a library, and you know what happens when you're in an academic library? You get like kind of overwhelmed, like you're a little kid in a candy store and can't choose what to take off the shelf. And I noticed a Pinkus Kehilas Litta from the Vad Ha'ar Baratzis, which, if you're interested in reading that book, you should probably be institutionalized. So I immediately grabbed the book off the shelf. I was fascinated by it, and it was edited from its original had never been published. It was in an archive. It was edited from its original in the early 1920s in Berlin by the famous Jewish historian Shimon Dubnov, probably the most famous Jewish historian in the world in history.
Not for us.
And he since Josephus and Dubnov. So I'm flipping through it, and I see Dubnov's introduction to the book. So I read through the introduction because he explains how he found it and how he came to publish it. And at the last paragraph, he says, I want to mention Matsevas Zikaron over here. Now, Dubnov was not just secular; he was almost militantly secular. He was very, very secular. He was, he did not, And he says there's this young, brilliant Chacham Talmudi named Rabbi Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan from the Rabbinical Seminary in Berlin, who came from Slobodka, and he helped me with editing this Pinkas Kehilas Lita, and he was this brilliant Talmud Chacham, but at the same time he was so scientific, and so he said he became indispensable to my work, working for the secular historian. And unfortunately, tragically, before this book was even published, he suddenly died when he was 34 years old. So I was like amazed by that Shimon Dubnov, who is like the most opposite of the yeshiva world that's possible, is coming like being maspid, the brilliant Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan. And then the Mekubalim come along, and they recently, they started discovering his Shaka Chamo, his famous song, which we'll hear more about, Davi and our singer, and also a little bit more about Avraham Eliyahu Kaplan.
We're gonna skip the song, but I'd like to end for to this evening by thanking everybody who came both in person and on Zoom. And this is obviously just a taste of where Avraham Eliyahu was, and Avraham Eliyahu has children, has grandchildren and great grandchildren. They're going to put out a special website with Kisvei Yad and with pictures which have not been put out. They're going to roll it out tomorrow in the actual honor of the Yahrzeit. It should be Zohar to be Mefis the Torah of Avraham Eliyahu. And I'd like to ask Mechila from Avraham Eliyahu if we didn't do a proper cover. It's been a long time. I really wanted to do something like this, and I probably should have done it earlier. And he's one of my heroes, and I hope I continue to be worthy of having a hero like that. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.